You brought up habits. Where are some places players can learn these habits? Does that come from just watching the games on TV?
Building habits takes 30 to 60 days. It doesn't happen overnight. And it really is a byproduct of discipline and single-minded, focused on what habit are you trying to build, and you're going to do that. And you're going to see a lot of athletes just in general in life who, like the ones that are successful, the ones that say, okay, I need to build this habit. Here's how I'm going to go and do it. There was a period there where building habits around like baseball skills is pretty hard, but there's a lot of easy wins. And so let's say in the off season, I had a rule, no outside factors were like, I don't eat pizza.
Yeah.
And you could put a pizza in front of
That's
me.
your standard.
New York style. Oh my gosh, I could have that whole pie by myself. And actually, it probably physically wouldn't have hurt me. I was, in the best shape of my life, working out 4 hours a day. But it's that decision to say, I'm going to get a win. I'm going to build a small habit around something that's highly controllable, knowing that then like attitude is a choice. Attitude is not something that is a reaction. It is something you choose. Discipline is in the same nature. And so what you build these habits around is a choice for hitters and players in general.
You have your principles, and if you let little things like that, like eating that slice of pizza happen, what little things are you going to let slip in your routine, in your practice, in the games, in big moments, right?
Yep. Your belief system is ultimately entirely intrinsic. And if you know that you would cheat yourself, then that it's going to fall apart.
And that goes into your preparation, which I think is a whole nother thing that we should probably dive into. Is if you don't have that belief in yourself, where does that belief come from? It's your preparations, doing those little things every single day, stacking those wins, and knowing that you're prepared for those moments, right? Like, how else can you build up that preparation? How else can you feel prepared for these big moments?
The one thing that I've seen as a detractor from building up the belief system, which is never the intent, it always comes with good intent, is around the parents' involvement and how you build competitors. But from a parent perspective, it's actually a little bit different. The last thing you want to do is have your player pulling up their phone right after a game to get a thread of text messages from you critiquing their game.
Yeah.
That is like, your role is to provide unconditional love.
Absolutely.
Win or lose, when you get in the car after a game as a player, you want your parent acting the same way no matter what. You don't want them to represent and feel the emotions of a bad game. You just want them to be your parent. You've hired you're on a travel club, you have professional coaches, paid coaches who are there to, I wouldn't say be transactional, but to hold your player accountable.
Yep.
Your job as a parent is to hold yourself accountable to love unconditionally. And that is something that you want to build a foundation of a belief system for a competitor and someone who loves the game. That's your role. It's plain and simple. And when you start crossing that line and you want to be the one to like say and critique and analyze, when it comes to games, that's not the right time. And if you build up the trust of your kid that, hey, when you get back in the car, I'm gonna love you, we're gonna go get ice cream, then all of a sudden when you're when you're out practicing with your kid and you have something to say, they're gonna listen.
Yeah.
And that is so important. And I can't speak enough to where I was so blessed in that both my parents, I had a dad who had the most knowledge, and you'll forget more about baseball than I'll ever know. But ultimately I knew he believed in me and I felt that. And so that wasn't something I needed because I had built up my own belief system. But in those critical periods where I could have gone back and forth, he was supporting. He felt like I felt from him and from my mom, they're like, hey, I'm actually pretty good at this. Like, I can be good at this. So I should continue.
As a parent coach, how can you guide players through the journey of taking ownership of their own career and creating that intrinsic motivation?
When, we talked about like two foundational things. Do they love the game of baseball? Do they love competing? And there's going to be a progression where at some point in time, the parent is no longer the driver and the one facilitating a lot of these moments and how you build up those foundational elements, in which then the player needs to be like the intrinsic motivation. They need to take over and become the driver and be asking the parent, hey, I need to go do this. Like I didn't get my work in, like I'd like to go this. And that transition does have to happen. And it likely is like, you think periodically, 6 to age 13, parents, probably the driver, coach very involved. But then that 13, 14, 15 age is like where those kids really need to like turn the corner. And that's also the most difficult time in which there's all these other social progressions happening. Like you're likely on a cell phone.
Yep.
You have social media, things that are, I want to say like detractors from making that switch, but also competing.
Yeah.
Competing for time, attention, etc. And so this is where, as a parent and a coach, it is so important that from the age, 6 to 13, that you're putting the right ingredients in. It's not a science on the transition. Like that is so much of an art. And in a lot of ways, the more as a parent, if you have a 13, 14-year-old, the more you push and you like signal and you throw out things, like the more pensive the situation is going to be.
Yeah.
So like, hey, do you want to go hit? Or did you hit today? All those leading questions are probably going to become more problematic in a player making that transition. But if you built the foundation, if these kids, most of their association and identity has been now built around loving the game of baseball and loving to compete, that's like you've done your job, and that transition will happen. And ultimately, if it gets to the point where it doesn't happen, like that time investment in those foundational elements are just going to be so core to building a whole person.